Today, we're going to talk about one of the most common questions that I am getting from my clients. Should I cancel my Disney vacation this year? The short answer, kind of depends. Depends on you, depends on your family, depends on your unique situation. Let's talk about the pros and the cons. As most of you know, especially if you're watching this video, you're Disney fans, you know that Walt Disney World was closed for a couple of months this spring due to COVID-19. Disneyland currently remains closed. The state of California has not yet authorized them to reopen, although it's looking pretty close. When Disney reopened in July, a lot of changes were in place. First and foremost, Disney has severely limited capacity at all 4 of its theme parks, which means basically to enable social distancing, rather than allowing, say, 50,000 guests in one park, they're only allowing 10,000 guests in that park. Okay, so they're severely limiting capacity. The numbers I've heard have been something around 20 to 25% of previous daily. Other big change was that every guest is required to make a park reservation in the new park reservation system before they can visit the parks. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. They have not opened all the restaurants. So there are some restaurants, some table service, some quick service open, but not all. All the park hours are significantly shorter than they would be in normal situations this time of year and when they opened. In addition to that, they are requiring masks for all guests age 3 and older at all times. Walking around, sitting down, resting, masks are required all the time, okay? It's very important to know, because if you're anti-mask, you can't go to Disney this year, okay? And it does not look like that's going to change before the end of the year. So that's an important factor to take into account. As I mentioned, the park hours being shorter and the limited capacity, there's also some changes to the actual attractions and activities and entertainment that is available to you as a visitor compared to what you might be used to in the past. Right now, because of COVID-19 and social distancing requirements, all things that would encourage a big gathering of guests have been eliminated. That means no afternoon parade, because the people gathering to watch the parade would be too congested. That means no nighttime fireworks or nighttime laser shows or any of that kind of stuff, because again, the crowds gather to watch that, and with social distancing, that just won't work. So there's no nighttime entertainment. You might be familiar with the main stage show at the Magic Kingdom, or some of the great shows over at Animal Kingdom, like Festival of the Lion King or Finding Nemo. None of the shows are going on right now because, again, you have a crowd, and the crowds bring people too close together. So a lot of the activities that we love are not happening right now. Another big one, character breakfast, character meals, where you have a meal and you get to interact with characters who come to your table to interact with your group and to take pictures. That's not happening. Character greetings, where you can go and meet a character, get your picture taken with them, get your kids' pictures taken with them, done a family picture with the characters, not happening, okay? So a lot of the things that are part of your regular ticket at Disney are not happening. And that's something you have to think about when you're thinking about taking a trip this year. Are you going to get the value that you feel is worth what you're paying? Normally, I tell my clients that, yes, a Disney vacation is very expensive, but it is absolutely worth it. The memories you will make, the experiences you will have, the jam-packed entertainment experience that you have in every hour of every day that you are there is amazing. Blow your doors off. Absolutely worth every penny that you spend, and more, quite frankly. Now my answer is slightly different, because you're not getting quite the value that you were getting for quite as long each day. So some of the benefits that are my favorite things to do at Disney, not happening right now. So you have to take that into consideration. For many of you, that may be fine. You may not be into character greetings. You may hate the parade. You may not like fireworks. If so, you may not mind the stuff that's missing. On the other hand, if any or all of those things are really important to you, or a big part of your experience, you got to take into consideration those things aren't happening right now, and they're probably not going to be happening anytime soon. This is mid-September 2020. From what I can tell through the end of the year, experiences are going to continue to be limited. Now, Disney's doing a lot of cool things to try and enhance the guest experience. They're doing these activities called character cavalcades, where they're kind of pop-up mini parades, where the characters come by on a float and you can see them and you can wave at them. The idea is it's a surprise. You never know when it's going to happen. It's not on a predictable schedule, so the crowds don't gather, but it gives people a chance to see the characters, take pictures of them, wave at them, interact with them. You don't get the table side or person-to-person character experience, but you do get to see the characters, so that helps. But I'm a fireworks baby. I love fireworks, right? So these are things you've got to consider. I'm not saying don't go. I'm not saying go. I'm saying think about the things that are important to you and your family to determine if you should go. Now, if this is your very first trip to Disney, I'm going to edge towards let's reschedule for next year. I want your first vacation to Disney to be amazing. For many, many of us, our first trip to Disney is a magical thing that grabs our heart and hangs on to it for 100 years, right? I want you to have that experience. I want your family to have that experience. I want the trip to be as magical as it can possibly be. The conditions right now are still magical, but there's a lot of the magic that's not quite what it needs to be for you to have your maximum experience. So personally, if it were my very first trip, the advice that I would give my family would be to postpone the trip till next year. It's a very expensive trip. I want to make sure that you are getting 100% of the value that you should get for what you're paying. Now, there's some considerations kind of along with that. If you're a Florida resident, you live in the area, you don't have far to travel, and you can go frequently, or you do go frequently, now's a great time to go. Crowds are lighter, lines are shorter, you can get better pictures because there's not as many people. There's a lot of good reasons to go if it's not a $5,000 or $10,000 or $20,000 trip for you, okay? This is what I'm talking about. If it's a first time trip, you've got to fly, you're spending, thousands of dollars on your hotel, you're spending thousands of dollars on your tickets, I would wait until next year, okay? If you're an annual pass holder, that's a different story. If you're someone who lives close by, that's a different story. If you're someone like me who's been a million times and goes frequently because of my blog to do research for my visitors and my clients, that's a different situation. I make a different decision for those people because I've seen a million fireworks shows, and yes, I still love them and they still make me cry. But can I live for one trip without them? Absolutely. If it's your first trip, do I want you to live without them? No, I don't, okay? Now, as a case study, my family, extended family, my parents, my two brothers and their families, and then myself and my husband, we had planned a big family Disney trip for this October. We've been planning this trip for 2 years. We have talked about it ad infinitum. We have planned and planned and planned and planned, and we were so excited. And my two youngest nieces and nephews were going to be 6 and 7 for the trip. And they both went, when I got married at Disney, they both went to Disney, but they were very, very little. I think my niece, was, like 6 months or 7 months old, and my nephew was, like 18 months. I mean, they were just really young. So they don't remember that trip at all. So for them, essentially, this is their first trip. Now, everybody else in the family has been a couple of times at least. My husband and myself, obviously, have been a million times. My mom and I have been a million times. But for the rest of the family, not quite as often. And they don't have quite the recent experience that I have. So when it came time this summer to make the decision, were we going to go in October or were we going to reschedule? We as a group discussed the pros and cons, primarily the financial considerations and the reduced value that's available this year. And we made the difficult decision to cancel our trip. And we've rescheduled it for next October. Hopefully by then things will be a little bit closer to normal. But it was a really tough decision and a very heartbreaking decision, I think mostly for my mom and myself, because we had been so excited planning, and the kids. My nephew, when COVID first started, kept asking me if COVID was going to impact our trip, and I was so sure it wouldn't. When I kept telling him, oh, of course not, it's going to be fine, and it'll be gone by then. And little did I know that 6 months later we would still be talking about COVID, and we would be seeing more than 200,000 people in this country that have died from COVID. I never imagined that we would be at this point. So that was the hardest part about rescheduling the trip, was disappointing my niece and my nephew and having to make them wait another year. That's really tough. And so if you have that situation with your family, I get it. It's really tough to tell your kids you're not going to go to Disney this year. But you got to think about, what did you want for your kids on this trip? Obviously you want to make memories. Did you want your kids' picture with Mickey Mouse? Did you want, a big thing for me was I wanted a picture of my niece with the princesses. I wanted a picture of my nephew with Darth Vader. These were things that were really important to me and my family and for all of us. And we had to acknowledge that that wasn't going to happen this year. One of the big things I wanted was I wanted my Star Wars crazed stepfather and brothers and nephews to see that amazing Star Wars nighttime entertainment at Hollywood Studios. It's mind-blowing. The way the lasers come from behind and around, and it's three-dimensional. It's amazing what they can do. I want them to see that. If we go now, they're not going to see it. So we made the decision. We postponed the trip. Now, conversely, my husband and I are going in November for our wedding anniversary. We got married at Disney, and we try to go every 2 or 3 years on our anniversary to celebrate and revisit and get away from it all. And then, of course, because of my blog and my business, to do research and take video and pictures and, all of that kind of stuff. For that trip, we are not canceling. We are still going. We have made some different decisions. We're going to drive. We're not going to fly. We're also making it a house hunting trip because we are planning to move to Orlando within the next 6 months to a year. We've got some other things happening, but our situation is different. We've been to Disney like 45 times. We got married there. We are perfectly happy with a shortened, abbreviated experience. Now, am I as happy with having to pay full price for that abbreviated experience? Not much, but I acknowledge that Disney is a business and they're in business to make money, and sacrifices must be made. But I'm looking at it as investment in my business and in you guys. And I'm going to be able to take some updated videos. I'm going to be able to get some updated pictures. I haven't been in the parks when they've been at this low of capacity, so I'm really excited about getting in there and seeing the parks without large crowds, being able to get on some attractions I haven't been able to get on or that I don't wait in line for. So, I'm kind of excited about that stuff. But I am disappointed that some of the things that I love to do, we're not going to be able to do. But I also know I'm going again in the spring. I'll be able to do it then, right? So these are the decisions you have to make. So I just want to summarize really quick. Benefits to going this year: limited capacity, lighter crowds. You might be able to get some great pictures without a million people in them, which can be very unusual in this time of Disney love and popularity worldwide. There's no fast pass, so there's no fast pass planning. You don't have to figure out 60 days in advance what rides you're going to ride and when you're going to ride them. For some people, that makes the trip planning very stressful. That's part of why I have the clients I have, because they let me do that stuff for them. They don't want to deal with it, and I'm perfectly happy to. But right now, you don't have to worry about fast passes. They don't exist. So that could be an advantage, right? It's definitely a unique experience. You're going to be wearing a mask. You're going to be social distancing. You're not going to have a lot of the standard things you're used to. There's no 3 o'clock parade. There's no happy ever after fireworks displays, that kind of stuff. It's a very different experience right now. But for some of us that go often, a unique experience is a positive. Okay, so there are some good reasons to visit. And again, as I mentioned before, if you're a Florida resident, it's a short trip for you. You don't need to stay in the hotel, or you can do a short weekend trip. This might be worth going to you, especially if you're a Florida annual pass holder, as long as you can get park reservations, which park reservations are key. You have to make sure you have your ticket media linked to your reservations in My Disney Experience so that you can go online, pick which park you're going to visit which day, make sure there's availability, and book a park reservation. You have to do that, because what you don't want to do is assume you're going to be able to get in, go to the parks, and not be able to get in. Okay, so you have to make that park reservation in advance. I've already made our park reservations for November. You can do it even farther advance than that. So basically, as soon as you have your park tickets, your ticket media, your annual pass, whatever it is, linked in your account, you can go into the park pass system, choose which dates you're going to go and which park you're going to visit when. Remember, no park hopping right now. So whatever park you go in the morning, you can leave, but you can only go back to that park, okay? So let's keep that straight. frequent annual visitors like myself, if you go all the time, these limited hours, these limited experiences may not be a big deal for you. Or if you have other things that you need to do in the area, for example, you're visiting family or you're visiting friends or you're doing a get together, or in our case, an anniversary trip and house hunting, we've got other things going on. The parks are not going to be the only thing happening in our vacation. For you, that may mean absolutely go this year, see it, enjoy it, have fun, okay? However, if this is your first trip, if you have any discomfort at all with wearing a mask all day, every day, in all the resort open areas and in the parks, don't go this year. If you really want the full Disney experience with Pirate Parade and the fireworks and the character greetings and the character meals and the shows and the extravaganzas, don't go this year. I'm a huge Disney fan. I hate to discourage anyone from going to Disney, but I would say for you to have the maximum experience and the maximum financial value for what you're spending, I would say postpone it till next year. Unless you're a frequent visitor, unless you are comfortable with a lot of those things not happening. For example, if you have a child who doesn't respond really well to all that extra stimulation, this might be the perfect time for you to go. And if you've got questions about that, reach out to me, we can talk about it, because I do have a couple of families that this is actually like their dream fantasy of when they could take their child to Disney. So if that means you, reach out to me, let's talk. But for the average family, this is your first or second trip, I wouldn't go this year, because you're not going to be getting the full experience, and you're paying for the full experience and you're not getting the full experience. And I hate to have that be what you have. So if you have questions, you need some more details, want to discuss your specific situation, please reach out to me, Brooke at DisneyCastleDreaming.com. Be sure and like this video, subscribe down below, and please check out my blog, DisneyCastleDreaming.com. I am an authorized Disney vacation planner, and I do for the love of Disney, but I also do help families plan their Disney vacations as well as vacations all over the world, and I would love to help you do the same. Happy dreaming. Bye.